Welcome into Jungle Tales, a Pirate Baseball podcast. You're watching this week in Pirate Baseball. East Carolina drops the series to conference champion UTSA. The Pirates fell 8-5 on Friday, and then 7-6 in a real gut wrencher in Game 1 of Saturday's doubleheader, a game in which they led 4-2 going to the ninth inning and gave up that 5 spot in the top of the ninth. And then the Pirates trailing 7-4 going to the bottom of the eighth in the second game of Saturday's doubleheader. They were able to rally with a pair in the eighth and a pair in the ninth to walk it off and get a much-needed win over the Roadrunners. But right now we'll talk about that series, talk about what lies ahead, as well as discussing a lot of the scenarios with the conference tournament that's going to be taking place next week down in Clearwater. And to do that, I'd like to first welcome in former East Carolina pitcher John White. John, how are you?
I'm doing well, Bubba. Thanks for having me on. Glad to talk baseball. Tough series this past weekend. UTSA obviously top of the league with the big bats they have, good pitching, great defense, and we played well. We could have took 2 out of 3. We all know this. But things are the way they are, and we did show them that we can play with them, and we're going to go down with a little bit more confidence if we do have to end up playing them in the tournament down in Clearwater. So thanks for having me on, and glad to be here.
And then also joining us, he's becoming a regular on the show, and he'll be providing all the stats for our fans throughout, and that is Johnny Robertson. JR, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing well, Bubba. Thanks for having me. Great.
Yeah, definitely great to have you back on. And this and every episode of This Week in Pirate Baseball is presented by PGXGloves.com. Appreciate the loyal support of former East Carolina third baseman Martin Minikazi. Kaz does an excellent job with PGX Gloves. And there you see some of the items that they have to offer. Go to pgxgloves.com and check out their batting gloves, golf gloves, and football gloves today. And be sure to follow us on social media at Jungle Tales Pod on X. You can chime in there throughout the show, or of course on YouTube and Facebook. But guys, going into this or last weekend against UTSA, you knew. The conference race was settled. UTSA had already clinched a tie. Then with their victory on Friday night, they went ahead and took care of winning it with 5 games remaining. But that game on Friday night, Ethan Norby, pitched very well early on. Had 7 up, 7 down. I think what allowed a single and a walk in the third inning. But the Pirates led 1-0 there in the middle innings.
Yeah, Ethan came out and did what we typically see from him. Did get in a little trouble there. We did move on to Ethan there after a few runs were scored after we took the lead. But I think Ethan ended up throwing 20 pitches, and we went with D'Lo, who did give up some more runs and then closed out with Lance and Jake. But on their side, they brought in their closer a little earlier than normal, but he came in and really shut the door a little bit. So it was a tough fought game there at the end when we did kind of make some 8th inning noise, but we just didn't have enough to come out ahead. But it was a game where we felt in the middle innings, it was kind of like that Irby game where you're kind of comfortable, but it ended up kind of getting out of hand there a little bit. So, but yeah, great game to start the weekend for UTSA, and they did clinch the conference championship with that win over the Pirates.
Right, and in that one, that was UTSA. Their rotation doesn't necessarily jump off the page at you, but they're very solid. They've been getting significant starts from each of the 3 guys, and in that game on Friday, that was definitely the case. What did you see out of that UTSA starter.
Yeah, no, I mean, you just saw a guy that came out there and was kind of consistent in what he was doing. He had 8 strikeouts. He had 103 pitches and 6 2/3, which is roughly where you want to be. So he did exactly what he needed to do. A little bit. I mean, he's 8-4 on the year now, and we really didn't know a whole lot about the pitching staff. We do hear that their bats are so good, their defense is so good, so you don't really hear about their pitching. But Royce and Orlovsky actually looked pretty good from a starter and then a finisher perspective. So it looked pretty good for the first game for their team. Yep.
Yeah, Zach Royce. His name was escaping me there for a moment, but yes, he looked very good. I know I was listening to D1 Baseball's weekly podcast, weekend wrap up earlier today, and I know Aaron Fitt had made his way over. Perhaps that was for Saturday's game, but he had also, I guess, online, what and via ESPN Plus, watched some of that game with Royce, and then Joe Healy was on the call on ESPN Plus on Friday, and I know the two of them, they were very impressed with what they saw from UTSA, and previously they'd had some questions regarding the Roadrunners pitching, but they felt after seeing them in person over the weekend that they definitely have the arms to make some noise in the postseason.
Yeah, I think they definitely answered that question, which is probably the biggest question everybody asks them because they have such a potent offense. Pirates did a good job this weekend on that offense, and I think JR was at the game, and he's got some stats to prove that out as far as the hitting goes. But anything you saw from game one while you were at the game, JR?
JR, can you hear us?
The first 4
JR, try switching devices. You're breaking up badly.
We had a 1-0 lead after 4. Ethan had only given up 1 walk and 1 single. Yeah, in the 5th inning, and then they had the double play.
JR, if you can hear me, you're breaking up badly. So try
Originally
maybe
called,
switching
but we got us
devices.
out of the scoring another run, and previous week.
Yeah. So I'll try to get JR on the side
I'll
while he switch devices.
go carry on, John. I'll reach out to JR to let him know why.
We're in the game 1, and it was a well fought game till 4th or 5th inning, and we just unfortunately gave up a few runs, and then late gave some runs up as well. But we tried to make a little bit of a comeback as far as hitting goes. Top of the lineup doing the things they're supposed to do still, getting hits, getting on base. Braden did struggle a little bit in that game. But we had Irby in the 2-hole now and Dixon in the 3-hole with Wallace at cleanup, and then Jack and Riley Johnson. And then Riley had a double during the game, which was a sign of good things to come for him or the weekend. And he had an excellent weekend. So it was a tough game. They had their pitcher was a little bit more. It was better than I expected from a pitching perspective on their part, but he has won a lot of games on the season. But then you start wondering if it's because the other team or because they have so many hitters on that team. But he actually showed he could get the ball and be pretty efficient with it. And he went 6 2/3. And then obviously their closer is a exceptional pitcher, and he got a 6 save on the game. So it was a good, impressive outing by them. We had to make a bounce back in game 2. So if you want to go into that when you get back, Bubba.
Yeah, I wanted to. I know you mentioned the 4-run 8th and how we made it interesting there in the late innings, and with those, you had a pair of 2-run doubles from Herring and then Big John Collins, and you still had no outs. And I had actually, I was busy at that juncture, and then I saw it later on, but did not see it live. The way we ran into an out there, and you had runners on the corners and down 3, and had a costly base running mistake.
Yeah, that's right, and that's been plaguing us a little bit here the last few weeks, where we definitely need base runners, and we've made a couple mistakes, and it's a young team, but still, it's late in the year, so that's getting, that excuse is getting old. But yeah, those are the kind of things you can't do, and especially when you need runs, being down a little bit more than just one. So something to learn from for every player, and then we move on to the Saturday games, and then we had to play 2 on Saturday because of the inclement weather coming in on Sunday.
Yep, and in that first game of the doubleheader, Jake Hunter got the ball, and that's something that we had talked about, perhaps on last week's show, but definitely, throughout the week. You had heard Coach. Obviously, Norby was going to be getting the ball after the way he was pitching. You had Brad Zayak. He was going to be getting a start. We didn't know whether that would be on game 2 or game 3, and turned out to be game 3. So you had Jake Hunter getting the ball in that second game, the first of the doubleheader, which is who I said I would go with as the third starter on the weekend. And Jake, so glad to see him have the outing that he did. He had pitched well in Friday night's game, 2 strikeouts, working a scoreless ninth, and then he pitched it was pretty much vintage Jake Hunter, it seemed, on Saturday in that game 1 of the doubleheader.
Yeah, exactly what you get out of Jake, and he comes in and kind of gives you a stable environment to feed off of. He's on the mound. He looks like a professional out there. He knows how to pitch. Doesn't come in with a 95, 94 miles an hour, but he definitely knows how to pitch. And I think he gave us 5 innings, gave up 5 hits there. Couple strikeouts, ended up handing the ball over to Brad Pruitt. And Brad also got some great stuff as well. Kind of got in trouble there a little bit, gave up some runs, but for the most part, there at the end, we were kind of cruising. Thought we were, another one of those games where we felt comfortable. And then UTSA comes in, and the wheels kind of fell off with the base on balls, like Coach mentioned. There's too many free passes. Against a team like UTSA, the free passes are not going to work eventually. Can't get away with it very long, and they made us pay there in the late innings. And we felt good about bringing Colby Wallace in. He's always seemed to have that bulldog mentality, get the ball over. But unfortunately, in this game, they were able to get the bat on the ball against him, and ended up losing that game. Kind of a gut punch, as you mentioned earlier.
Really was. You had 4 straight walks, and then who else do you have coming to the plate but Mason Lytle? And
yeah, and he's tough out.
You were hoping that we could somehow avoid what you were fearing was going to happen.
Yeah, out of all the players on their team, offensive wise, that's not the one you want to see at the plate. But I did want to mention one thing. Brad did have a couple pitches that got squeezed on him that I thought he could have got out of that situation. So that was not lost on me when I watched the game. There was one that was they checked the swing on it and he didn't swing. Obviously, on the replay on TV, he didn't swing. But the other pitch was a strike on the inside corner. I'm sorry, but we should have probably got out of that situation and been a different outcome, in my opinion.
And then you had, sorry, go ahead, JR. Were you chiming in?
No, I wasn't. I wasn't even aware that I was back. Hey, shocker! I'm having audio issues.
Yeah, we were talking about.
I think I have them fixed now. I switched devices, so I should be good the rest of the way. But thank you for your patience.
Yeah,
No
we were
problem.
just talking about that game where the Brad Pruitt check swing and then the pitch on the inside corner, and I think you had mentioned that kind of the check swing was not a check swing, but the other pitch was a strike. So he probably could have got out of that situation.
Yeah.
And I talked about how, that game was it was similar to the first game in that we had that 1-0 lead going into the middle innings, extended it to 2-0, or excuse me, it was 1-1 going to the middle innings. We made it a 2-1 lead on Jack Herring's 2-out knock there in the 5th. And then after they had tied it up at 2 in the 6th, you had a couple of solo bombs, one in the 7th and one in the 8th. With you had Jack Herring and Riley Johnson. They had huge weekends, and they gave us that 4-2 cushion that we were unable to hold on.
I don't. Hey, Bob, excuse me if you've already covered this, but I mean, the Pirate pitchers, we didn't issue a walk for the first 25 outs, 8 1/3 innings, and then we gave up. We issued 4 consecutive walks and threw in a wild pitch just for fun, and all 4 eventually crossed the plate, and that really was the difference.
Yep. Yeah, and Bubba mentioned the cushion, and that against UTSA, that's a little bit of a different term. So there's really 3 runs, 4 runs,
4-2 lead. Yeah, poor choice of word on my part, John.
Yeah, great offense they have.
But yeah, that you had the second of the 2 solo home runs, that they gave us a little insurance, but clearly was not enough. But after falling behind 7-4, after giving up the 5 spot in the top of the 9th, the Pirates about pull it off, but unable to do so. They played a couple, and then you had all kinds of drama with Pat Hallmark getting ejected, arguing balls and strikes. And when he went out to the mound, it was one of those you knew he was probably not going to make it to the dugout without being tossed.
Yeah, that's for sure. We had a little bit of a trippy weekend as well, but yeah, definitely he was going out there to get tossed.
Hey, how about the bottom of the 9th? We have one guy on, and Dixon Williams. I'm telling you, that ball was over the fence, but unfortunately, the Roadrunners right fielder James Tossig is 6'6", and he needed every inch. At least from where I was in left field. Now, maybe on TV it looked different, but from where I was, it looked like that ball was out of here. And Tossig, with his long wingspan, just reached up and over. He didn't even have to jump, and he unfortunately caught the ball. But it could have had a much different ending if Dixon could have straightened that one out a little bit.
There was one of the home runs where I thought the right fielder was going to rob it, and it was just out of his reach. But yeah, Dixon Williams, when he got the sac fly, he just missed that. And
yeah,
because there, Mike Mullis on the ESPN Plus broadcast is like, I really expect Dixon to get off a very aggressive swing here, and he definitely did, and just missed it. And because if he'd have been, just a little bit lower on the ball, it would have been out there in Cliff Moore practice facility.
On the barrelhead, yeah, for sure.
And just to wrap up game 2, also strikeouts were an issue there at the end of the game. The first 4 innings, we didn't strike out at all. The Pirates, and then in innings 5 through 9, they struck out 9 times. And I have a feeling that had something to do with Boucher not getting the start in game 3. He had 50 consecutive starts, and then he did not start in the finale. And I have a feeling that part of that is due to the fact that he was 0 for 6 with 4 strikeouts and he wasn't the only one. I mean, I'm not putting that on him, but we had 9 strikeouts in the last 5 innings. And, they all came at inopportune times, and we just could never get anything going, or we couldn't carry forward the momentum. So, yeah, that was
and then
unfortunate.
obviously UTSA knew what they were going to do with Alex, and they executed exactly what they needed to do. And some teams don't, and he can hurt you as well if he gets a hold of it. But yeah, so I can see getting a little bit of a mental break in that last game. And surprisingly, on the third game, we were able to get Raleigh Johnson back in there for the third game, which is a pretty good sign. But he did get to cramping there at the end. So, but he had a
Yeah.
good weekend overall.
And
Yeah.
then in game two, also, this is my last comment on game two. UTSA tied their most wins in the season record at 39. And they also, that was their 10th consecutive win. So, I mean, this was not, we all knew this, but this was a very, very good baseball team that we were playing. And I feel like we outplayed them in maybe 25 of the 27 innings. So, I know that doesn't count in the standings, but we nothing to be ashamed of. They played very well, and we should have had 2 wins. We just should have, and we could have had 3, but we should have had 2.
Unfortunately, it's been what we were discussing off the air. What's been the case this season in most games against quality competition. Prior to winning that second game of the doubleheader, we had lost 5 one-run ball games.
Yeah.
And on the year now, I think I believe we're 4-8 now, 4-8 or 5-8 in one-run ball games. But 2 of those wins came on opening weekend against George Mason, and had been
Right.
2-8.
4-3, 4-3.
Yeah, have been 2-8 since then.
Yeah.
And
Also, it's odd. I feel like it's very strange that our away winning percentage is higher than our home winning percentage. That just doesn't happen, and it's just due to many factors, but that was an anomaly this season. I feel the energy's there. It's just we're not winning, but
yeah, Pirates finished 16-13 at Clark-LeClair with tonight's return trip from Campbell getting rained out. Not surprised, and I know we were joking before we went live that was one that was probably going to get called off if there were a few too many clouds in the sky.
yeah, no doubt. Have we moved to game 3 yet, or no?
Yes, we have.
Okay.
But yeah, before we move to game 3, since he was the starter for the second game of the series, first game of the doubleheader, Jake Hunter, with his excellent performance, is our PGXGloves.com pitcher of the week. He had also pitched on Friday in the 9th inning. So 2 appearances, 6 innings, 2 runs, 5 hits, 4 strikeouts, and no walks. And two of those Ks came on Friday night. So in the start, Jake went 5 innings and 2 runs on 5 hits and 2 Ks. And the biggest thing there, no free passes, which is something that hurt us in the games that we lost. Because
Yeah.
you look at Royce on Friday night. Royce and the relievers, they only had 1 or 2 free passes, whereas the Pirates had 7.
Through the first 2 games, it was 12-5. We had 12 free passes. We issued 12 free passes. They issued 5, and that was the story of the first 2 games. And in the third game, they issued 8. We only, we kept it to 3, and that was probably a contributing factor to us winning game 3. So yeah, that's a big deal. Free passes is a big deal, and we did well in game 3 to rebound from some issues in 1 and 2.
But just with everything Jake Hunter had been through, very excited for him to pitch so well on senior weekend. He'd started his career as a weekend starter in the Sunday role, and then did not pitch as well at the end of his freshman year, and then last year was pitching well and had the injury. And fortunately, like Coach Godwin mentioned in a couple of his weekly interviews, he just said that he didn't expect to get this much out of Jake this season, and to be able to do so has been a blessing.
Yeah, Jake's awesome. Coach's dream goes out there and kind of gives you a very consistent game. And we aren't far removed from. I mean, he was a weekend starter against UNC Chapel Hill last year. Correct? Correct me if I'm wrong on that.
Correct, and that was the Sunday game, and he took a no hitter into about the fifth inning or something.
Yeah, yeah. So, unfortunate injury, but yeah, Jake's been a heck of a pitcher this year, and it was great to see a great showing on Senior Day for him. So, well deserved.
And Jake was very efficient also with his 5 innings. He only threw 66 pitches. Well, probably because, yeah, like you said, he didn't issue any walks. But yeah, Jake looked really good, and no, I don't think anybody expected to get 5 out of him. So that was definitely a bonus.
And that's exactly what we needed to see, moving into Clearwater, where we know we have to win the tournament. You're getting, some longer outings.
Yeah,
And Brad Pruitt, and we talked about his excellent relief performance, although he did have the 2 walks there in the ninth, but he went on like 3 2/3, pitched very well, and looked more like the Brad Pruitt we had seen for most of the season, prior to a couple of rough starts. And definitely seems as though Brad's a little more comfortable, in relief, as is Ethan Young.
yeah.
Yeah,
But so right now, you really look at it. You got Ethan Norby, Ethan Young, Jake Hunter, Brad Pruitt, and Sean Jenkins. Those guys have proven, although not on a consistent basis for some of them, but they can give you anywhere from 4 to 7 innings.
yeah. So yeah, that's been the mo this year. We've had some pitchers show on occasion that they can stand out and then come back and give you a little bit of a dud. So there has been some consistency issues when it comes to the pitching staff, and coach has been trying to get that starter rotation ironed out around Norby. But speaking of consistency, we had been talking about Bradley Zayak going into the weekend, getting a start. Good for him. He had been pitching well, and then he comes out and all of a sudden has a bad game. And then Sean comes in and does what he has done on occasion and come in and pitch very well. He had a great Sunday or second game on Saturday. So,
Yep.
yeah, kind of the future of the pitching staff. One of the anchors, Sean Jenkins, shows you what he can do. Just a little more consistency out of him, and he is 18 years old, just turned 18 years old. So he's young, but he's got a bright future ahead of him, and fortunate that he's on our team.
Yeah, Sean was right there with Jake Hunter for pitcher of the week.
Yeah.
We went with Jake, a little bit of a sentimental pick there. Definitely
Senior,
earned it. Definitely
senior
earned it.
weekend.
Yeah. Well, and that theme will continue here in a moment. No secret who the other pick will be for the player of the week, but yeah, Sean Jenkins, 6 2/3, 93 pitches, 2 runs. Only one of those was earned on 3 hits, 6 strikeouts, 2 walks.
Yeah.
And he did not hit a batter. So, like Coach Godwin mentioned post game, he was lights out.
He was, and I also heard Coach Godwin talk about, how he wished he had like some type of ESP or something, because knowing which pitcher is going to be better suited to start and which one is going to be better suited to come in after the fact is a tough task. Like, it's ever changing. You don't know, what pitcher is going to perform better as a starter or as a reliever, and that's a tough one. But
And going back to what Bubba was saying about Pruitt, and I can tell you from experience, when you are a starter, and I've done both. I came in relief for Coach Overton. I also was a starter. But when you're a starter, you have a lot more time to think about this situation when you're told you're going to be a starter. But when you come in relief, you don't have as much time to think. So it's two completely different mindsets. And some people are a lot better at coming in relief. There's no doubt about that. And some guys know how to prepare to be a starter. I mean, you take a look at last year. I mean, we had the two starters. They know how to start, and they prepare themselves. They have a week. It's a very consistent plan for them, and they mentally are focused, and they know how to do that. And you see Trey Savage and what he's doing, and then Root as well. And Trey's pitching tonight, by the way, I saw. But yeah, two different mindsets. And if you don't have that consistency or you don't have that game plan as a starter, the mentality, you may struggle. And Bradley Zayat came out. He'd been in relief. He pitched pretty well. He maybe started a couple games, but you saw that they kind of got on him there in the second inning, and things went downhill for him. But then you saw Sean come in, and he didn't have all that time to think about it. He just came out kind of like the Charlotte game, right? Very similar. Come out and dominated, coming in relief. And so the mindset's there. You see what needs to happen. Sean's going to have to get better at preparing as a starter, and it's just lessons learned as you become a pitcher.
As John mentioned, I mean, Trey Savage is on the mound tonight. The Dunedin Blue Jays were in a rain delay, may currently still be in rain delay, not sure, but we'll try to provide you with an update on that, before we go off the air tonight. And we'll also, have our Pirates in the show and professional baseball report, as we'll take a look at the six in the big leagues as well as those in minor league baseball, because you had Carson Whisenhunt having an excellent outing today. We'll give you the details here in just a few minutes. But guys, as we move on from the weekend, but before we do so, we've talked about the performance of Riley Johnson. Just so much of this season, Riley has just been leading from the dugout, and only had played in probably 4 or 5 games, something like that, going into the weekend. He first played down at Rice when we were beginning league play, but he'd had a few moments, but it looked like the Riley Johnson of old over the weekend. And as usual, he's always battling through pain, and it was just stereotypical Riley Johnson over the weekend. And because of that, that tremendous performance, he is our PGXGloves.com player of the week. 5 for 11, 2 bombs, a double, a triple. He had a walk, laid down that key sacrifice there in the second game of the doubleheader that allowed the Pirates to walk it off. 5 runs batted in, 4 runs scored. He hit for the series cycle. One of those home runs was a grand slam, that being the one in the first inning of the second game of the doubleheader. And then how about the catch he had on Friday night? That's the one you see there. Give credit here to ECUPirates.com. It's a picture that we had on our official website that I couldn't resist using because of the way Riley went up and robbed that home run.
Yeah, and JR got to see that live. I remember after you saw that, you said Riley out there being Riley, So pretty awesome to see.
Yeah, absolutely. It was. And I just want to add, I don't know if the camera on TV picked it up, but after he hit the grand slam in the third inning, he tried to beat out, a base hit running down first, and he needed medical assistance because he was cramping pretty bad. And then in the fifth inning, going into third base, again, he needed medical assistance. And then in the ninth, I think it was the ninth, maybe it was the eighth, running down the first baseline, everybody saw what happened there. I mean, he just completely sold out. And, I give credit to the UTSA players because they came out of the dugout. It was great sportsmanship. and they helped him make it back to the dugout. But I mean, he couldn't have given any more of himself than he did that day. And he's if anybody deserved to be player of the week, Riley Johnson absolutely does. He's a warrior.
Yep. And as a baseball fan, that's the kind of player you want to watch. He kind of a human highlight reel when he's playing. So we were fortunate to have him.
Hey,
Go ahead.
Absolutely.
Yep.
No, I was gonna say I'm good for some weird stats, but okay, so Riley Johnson has been a Pirate for 5 seasons, and 18.1% of his home runs were hit on Saturday. He's only hit 11 in his career, and 2 were on Saturday. And Cliff was saying that batting practice, he was having problems even planting his back leg, and that just shows that he did this all on will, and that he is definitely a warrior and someone that we'll remember long after he's gone.
For sure.
Yeah, him having that type of weekend is really, outside, and Riley Johnson would have certainly traded some of that individual success, for another W or two. But
no doubt.
But otherwise, you really couldn't have scripted it any better. Him having such success in his final series at Clark-LeClair.
Yeah, he brought, and he did make mention. I think I've heard him talk about thinking about the last time playing on that field. So that's a big deal. And yeah, he definitely brought the game on Saturday, and well deserved for Player of the Week, PGX Player of the Week.
No doubt. Hey, Bubba, before we leave Game 3, I just have one very short shout out to Austin Irby. That 9th inning at bat, where he had a full count and then fouled off 4 pitches before getting the walk. That was good stuff. I mean, without that, I'm not sure we win that game.
Yeah,
but
that's
that
one
was
of the
good
many
stuff.
things that you don't, unless you look at the play-by-play or a very detailed box score, that they don't go notice or do not get noticed, I should say, where you have those 7, 8, 9 pitch at bats, and where it results in a walk, or maybe sometimes even it results in an out, but they're quality at bats.
Right, and you're running up the pitch count.
Pitcher really work.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that you saw a more mature Irby towards as he developed over the year. He kind of went into a little bit of a lull, and then came back, and now you're seeing the type of player you're going to get in the future. Top of the lineup bat, first baseman that can dig it, and yeah, so that's good signs out of him that he developed over the year, and he kind of bought into the program, and he makes pitchers work. And as far as his on base percentage goes, he's probably second or third on the team. So it's a very nice freshman to put up with the other freshman we have. I can't even think his name right now, but anyway, yeah. So Irby is showing signs of things to come for us, and another freshman that's going to eventually one day be one of the better players we've had at East Carolina, in my opinion.
I'd stepped away for a moment till you were talking about other freshmen.
Yeah, I was talking about Braden Burris. I keep
Burris, gotcha.
Yeah. For some reason, I always want to say Barron when it's Burris. So, but yeah, Braden Burris and Austin Irby and Sean Jenkins. I mean, that's pretty good. Pretty good few.
Scramble.
Yeah,
it's who I thought you may have been talking about.
Yeah.
Braden Burris is still 26th in the nation in batting average, and the number 1 freshman, and all the other freshmen that were like kind of near him, they're all dropping, because I mean, this is the time of year where a lot of the freshmen just, it's a long season and they lose their focus or whatever, but Braden's keeping it up. So I'm looking forward to what he's going to do down the stretch.
That's right. UTSA had their own pretty good freshmen as well, but yeah,
Jordan Ballin, who didn't start in game one for some reason. I don't understand that one.
yeah, and
Guys,
I'm not.
over this next 10 minutes or so, as we start to wrap up the show, let's take a look at what lies ahead, down to the final week of the regular season. The Pirates will be taking on South Florida Thursday, Friday, Saturday down in Tampa. A very solid first season for the Bulls under their new head coach, Mitch Hannah's coming over from Indiana State after so much success with the Sycamores. And here you see the league standings. The only thing that's locked up going into the final week of the regular season is UTSA as the number one seed, with that 20-4 league record and 39-11 overall record. But you have Charlotte and the 49ers are currently in second place. South Florida is in third at 14-10. FAU and Tulane are tied for fourth at 13-11. East Carolina is sixth at 12-12. Rice seventh at 10-14. Memphis and Wichita State are tied for eighth at 8-16. And then you have UAB in the cellar at 7-17. Of course, so only 8 teams, make it to the conference tournament down in Clearwater. So you really have Memphis, Wichita State, and UAB really needing to play excellent baseball. And coincidentally, you have Memphis and Wichita State playing one another out at X Stadium. But as far as the Pirates are concerned, you have the conference tournament seeding scenarios. Like I mentioned, ECU is currently in sixth. The Pirates can finish anywhere from third to seventh. If ECU were to sweep South Florida, combined with FAU and Tulane losing their series, that's either losing 2 or 3 games this weekend, the Pirates could finish in third place. So a lot would have to happen for that to be the case. For fourth place, if East Carolina swept FAU and then, swept USF, and then FAU or Tulane won their series, then ECU would be in fourth. You also have a variety of other scenarios that you see there on the screen, that could, a lot of it's going to be contingent on, what Tulane does against Charlotte and also what FAU does in Birmingham against the Blazers of UAB. And for ECU to finish seventh, that would be extremely unlikely. It would require ECU to be swept and then Rice to sweep UTSA in San Antonio.
Yeah, that's probably not going to happen.
What are your guys' thoughts on all these scenarios as we enter the final week?
For me, there's a lot of scenarios. Right now, Charlotte's playing good ball. They've won 5 in a row. They're going to win 6 in a row. They're up 25-5 tonight against UNC Asheville at home in Charlotte. UTSA, 1 seed. We know that we can't play them in the first round, but we definitely are fitting into an area where we may see Charlotte within our little range of. I think we're going to end up probably 5th is my guess. I've told you guys off air. I think we'll be 5th, but yeah, there's a lot of scenarios that could play out, and it's tough to figure them out at this point. I would say it's almost as tough as trying to figure out the ACC at this point at the top 6. But yes, we have a lot of different scenarios. The team's going to have to go out there and play their game and not worry about all that. And where the chips lie is where they're going to have to play them. So that's the way it is.
Okay, I would add that ECU. I hope they finish 6th. I don't even want them to move up, because if they finish 6th, they get to 3, which would likely be South Florida, possibly FAU. But it would prevent us from being in the same side of the bracket as UTSA, and it would also prevent us from facing Gillespie from Charlotte, in the first start, because you got to win the first game. You have to. And as far as ECU passing Tulane to get 5th, that because we're 1 game behind them and they have the tiebreaker. So that may be difficult. I'm hoping we win 2 or 3. That's what I'm hoping for, and I'm hoping that we stay in 6th.
So real quick, JR, what are the odds of winning the conference tournament if you lose your first game?
0.
There you go.
It's never happened.
Never happened. Yep.
Hey, I'll just throw that stat out there for those that haven't heard it. There's been 10 AAC tournaments, and the number 1 seed has only won 1 time, and that was in 22 with the Pirates. And then in the last 4 years, the 7 seed, the 6 seed, and the 3 seed have all won it. So it's anybody's. Anybody can win this thing.
And kind of.
Real quick, Bubba. I think for the listeners that are tuning in, the Rice Owls have 2 top arms. They're number 1, depending on where they finish, is a tough out to get by. And so don't sleep on Rice at this point. They've won 5 out of 7. They're 15-21 since they replaced coaches. So they have top arms at the front of that lineup, so they're not going to be an easy 7 or 8 seed, where I think they can only finish 7 or 8 seed. So don't sleep on Rice here if you're at the top of that tournament.
Yeah, I knew that's something that you and I, as well as JR, had discussed off air, how they're definitely capable of doing some damage down in Clearwater with those top 2 arms, and the way they've been playing better baseball under David Pierce, since he took over. What do you say? They're 15-20.
Yeah, they were 15-20. They did lose the last game of their series, so they're 15-21 since David took over. But recently, here in the last 7 games, they were playing a lot better. And like we all have talked about, if you go up against their number 1, their number 2, you better be ready. So it'll be a fun time down the tournament time.
Yeah, with what they have there, on campus, and what Coach Pierce, I'm sure, will bring in, via the portal or otherwise. I'll say right now that the Rice Owls will have a winning season in 2026.
Yeah, we talked about at least, it's going to be somewhere a lot better than what they've been doing. You got to think about some of the coaches in this league right now, with what UTSA brings to the table with their coach, a winner at every stop, Coach Godwin, and then you got David down there at Rice. So, yeah, a lot of good coaches right now there at the top. So it'll be interesting to see how it unfolds.
And I have to think Wichita State will be better next season as well.
Yeah, that's another team that has they started off as a contender according to the pundits, but they have not played very well. So like to see them get that program turned around and get back to some prominence.
Taking a look at our Pirates in the big leagues, or Pirates in the show, if you will, Alec Burleson has really been coming on here of late. Hit a couple of bombs. Also, had a clutch double. The Cardinals have won 9 straight. They had really been struggling. They were 14-19, but now they're 23-19 in second in the NL Central. Connor Norby, Norbs, last I saw, was about 250 with 1 or 2 bombs. JR, you may have those specific numbers. Zach Agnos has been pitching really well for the Rockies. Gavin will be on the mound on Wednesday night. He'll be getting the start. They're in Cleveland. I'm trying to recall who they play, but Gavin will be on the mound. Gavin's 3-2 with a 4.38 ERA, and they are playing the Brew Crew. It's actually tomorrow afternoon, so Wednesday afternoon at 1:10. You can watch, if you have the ability to, with whatever you subscribe to. The Indians are also in second place in the AL Central. They are 24-17. Gavin at times has been plagued by some walks, but he has been pitching better here of late. And I know Jeff Hoffman, after a really strong start, has had some struggles, but I know he'll get it together. And then Sean Armstrong with the Texas Rangers has done some good things as well.
Yeah, Jeff's bounced back. He did have a couple blips on the radar, but he's back since then and has got 2 saves since those couple of down outings. So he's back. Happens, so got to move on.
Hopefully, last year we had multiple Pirates in playoff baseball. Gavin Williams, one of those, and hopefully that will be the case in 2025. It definitely looks as though it will be. Sean Armstrong has appeared in 15 games, working 16 2/3, and he has a 1-0 record and a 3.24 very solid ERA with 17 Ks and 8 walks. So Sean Armstrong, you think about it, how long he's been in the big leagues now. He's bounced around. He's been with the Cubs, the Cardinals, the Rays, the Orioles, but obviously a great way to make a living.
Yeah, I would say so. And yeah, he's been. I mean, how old is he now? About 34 years old, but he's still getting the job done at the big league level. So.
Yep. He wrapped it up his Pirate career there. I'm trying to remember, maybe 2012, somewhere in there, 2011, 2012.
Yeah, but, he's on a 1-year contract this year. I mean, he's been a situational type arm here and there. Pitches a lot of games, but yeah, he's not like end of the game guy yet or a starter or whatever. But he's one of those situational guys you can bring in and against certain opponents, and that's typically how he's used. But yeah, he's been around the big leagues a long time. He's still got a 1-year contract, and that's some still some good money. And I would rather be doing that than sitting at home.
Yep, and I know Jacob Jenkins Cowart had a 2-home run game here recently. Carson Wisenhunt, do not be surprised if he's in the big leagues before the season's over, giving ECU a 7th player. Wiz had an excellent start today. Today being Tuesday, the 13th of May, 7 innings, did not allow a run, 3 hits, 9 strikeouts, and no walks. For the Sacramento River Cats.
Yeah, he definitely has the stuff to do it. He needed that today. He has not pitched as well as we expect him to do, but he's definitely got the stuff to make it in the bigs, and we should hear his name called eventually. But yeah, great game for him. He needed it, and he went out there and did it, and showed the reason he was drafted in the 2nd round out there.
But guys, that will do it for this edition of This Week in Pirate Baseball. We appreciate everyone tuning in and your support of Jungle Tales, the Pirate Baseball podcast. Be sure to follow us, on social media, on YouTube, X, Instagram. We can be found at Jungle Tales Pod. Also, be sure to follow, like and comment on Spotify, and that will do it for this edition of the show. We'll be joining you. Well, hopefully, we're aiming to get a conversation with Mitch Hannes, the first-year South Florida coach, or at least their play-by-play voice. But that remains to be seen whether that will happen or not. If it does not, the next time you'll hear from us, is this weekend when we wrap up the final series of the regular season against the South Florida Bulls and continue to get you ready for the American Athletic Conference tournament. But for former East Carolina pitcher John White and Johnny Stats, I'm Bubba Rosenbaum. You've been watching and listening to This Week in Pirate Baseball on Jungle Tales. And as always, go Pirates.
All right, I know Bubba had to leave, but thank you, JR.